Testing driven ground rods at the service involves several steps. Firstly, gather your materials. You'll need a ground rod tester, also known as a megometer, a long test lead approximately 50 feet in length, a short test lead approximately 6 feet in length, a copper ground rod, a temporary grounding wire, and optionally, a resistance measuring device. Secondly, ensure you take all necessary safety precautions. Wear appropriate personal protective equipment, or PPE, including insulated gloves and eye protection. Ensure the work area is clear of any hazards and electrical equipment. Disconnect power to the electrical equipment before commencing any testing. Now, let's move on to the procedure itself. Step 1. Prepare the ground rod. Drive a copper ground rod approximately 10 feet into the ground near the service entrance. Step 2. Connect temporary grounding. Connect a temporary grounding wire from the ground rod you just drove to the electrical equipment that you're testing. Step 3. Connect the ground rod tester. Connect the long test lead of the ground rod tester to the top of the driven ground rod. Connect the short test lead to the grounding wire that is connected to the electrical equipment. Step 4. Perform resistance measurement. Set the ground rod tester to the appropriate resistance range. This is typically between 0 and 100 ohms. Start the tester and carefully read the resistance value displayed. Step 5, which is optional, measure reference resistance. If desired, measure the reference resistance of the ground rod using a resistance measuring device. Connect the device between the top of the ground rod and the grounding wire. Step 6. Interpret the results. Compare the measured resistance to the acceptable range for ground rods. It's important to remember that this acceptable range can vary depending on local codes and standards. If the resistance is too high, the ground rod may need to be driven deeper, or an entirely different grounding method may be required. Step 7. Disconnect the test equipment. Once the test is complete, disconnect the ground rod tester and the temporary grounding wire. Step 8. Record the results. Record the measured resistance value and any other relevant information for future reference and analysis. There are some additional notes to keep in mind. Firstly, the ground rod tester should be calibrated annually to ensure accuracy of measurements. Secondly, if testing multiple ground rods, ensure they are not interconnected electrically to avoid inaccurate readings. Thirdly, different types of ground rod testers may have slightly different procedures. Always consult the manufacturer's instructions for specific details on how to use the particular model of tester you are using. Grounding is a critical aspect of electrical safety. A ground rod provides a path for fault current to flow back to the source, allowing overcurrent protection devices, such as circuit breakers or fuses, to trip and energize the circuit. This helps prevent electrical shock hazards and minimizes the risk of equipment damage. A properly installed and tested ground rod ensures that the electrical system is adequately grounded, providing a safe and reliable path for fault currents. The resistance of the ground rod is a crucial factor in determining its effectiveness. A low resistance ground rod provides a better path for fault current, allowing it to flow more easily and quickly back to the source. This helps to trip overcurrent protection devices faster, reducing the duration of the fault and minimizing the risk of electrical shock or equipment damage. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, specifies that the resistance of a single ground rod should not exceed 25 ohms. If the resistance is higher than 25 ohms, an additional ground rod must be installed and bonded to the first ground rod. The two ground rods should be separated by at least 6 feet to ensure that they are not in the same zone of influence. There are several factors that can affect the resistance of a ground rod. These include the type of soil, the moisture content of the soil, the depth of the ground rod, and the diameter of the ground rod. Soil type is a major factor in determining ground rod resistance. Sandy soils tend to have higher resistance than clay soils. This is because sandy soils have larger particles and more air gaps, which reduces the ability of the soil to conduct electricity. Clay soils, on the other hand, have smaller particles and less air gaps, which makes them better conductors of electricity. The moisture content of the soil also affects ground rod resistance. Moist soil is a better conductor of electricity than dry soil. This is because water contains ions that can carry electrical charge. Therefore, ground rods installed in moist soil will typically have lower resistance than ground rods installed in dry soil. The depth of the ground rod also affects its resistance. The deeper the ground rod is driven into the ground, the lower its resistance will be. This is because the ground rod will be in contact with more soil, which provides a larger path for fault current to flow. The diameter of the ground rod also affects its resistance. A larger diameter ground rod will have a lower resistance than a smaller diameter ground rod. This is because the larger diameter ground rod has more surface area in contact with the soil, which provides a larger path for fault current to flow. When testing ground rods, it is important to use a calibrated ground rod tester. A ground rod tester, also known as a megometer, is a specialized instrument designed to measure the resistance of ground rods. It works by injecting a small current into the ground rod and measuring the voltage drop. The resistance is then calculated using Ohm's law. It is also important to follow all safety precautions when testing ground rods. Always wear appropriate personal protective equipment, including insulated gloves and eye protection. Ensure the work area is clear of hazards and electrical equipment. Disconnect power to the electrical equipment before testing. When interpreting the results of a ground rod test, it is important to compare the measured resistance to the acceptable range for ground rods. As mentioned earlier, the NEC specifies that the resistance of a single ground rod should not exceed 25 ohms. If the resistance is higher than 25 ohms, an additional ground rod must be installed and bonded to the first ground rod. If the resistance is too high, there are several things that can be done to lower it. One option is to drive the ground rod deeper into the ground. This will increase the amount of contact between the ground rod and the soil, which will lower the resistance. Another option is to add water to the soil around the ground rod. This will increase the moisture content of the soil, which will make it a better conductor of electricity. A third option is to replace the ground rod with a larger diameter ground rod. This will increase the surface area of the ground rod in contact with the soil, which will lower the resistance. In some cases, it may be necessary to install a chemical ground rod. A chemical ground rod is a ground rod that is filled with a chemical compound that helps to lower the resistance of the soil. Chemical ground rods are typically used in areas where the soil is very dry or sandy. Grounding systems are crucial for electrical safety, and ground rods are a fundamental component of these systems. Regular testing and maintenance of ground rods are essential to ensure their effectiveness in protecting against electrical shock and equipment damage. By following the proper procedures and taking the necessary safety precautions, you can ensure that your grounding system is functioning correctly and providing a safe electrical environment. The NEC provides detailed requirements for grounding and bonding in Article 250. This article covers everything from the size and type of grounding conductors to the methods for connecting grounding electrodes. It is important to be familiar with the requirements of Article 250 when designing and installing grounding systems. In addition to ground rods, there are other types of grounding electrodes that can be used. These include ground plates, ground grids, and concrete encased electrodes. Ground plates are metal plates that are buried in the ground. Ground grids are interconnected networks of conductors that are buried in the ground. Concrete encased electrodes, also known as UFO grounds, are conductors that are encased in concrete. The choice of grounding electrode will depend on the specific application and the soil conditions. In some cases, it may be necessary to use multiple types of grounding electrodes to achieve the desired grounding resistance. Grounding and bonding are closely related concepts. Grounding refers to the connection of electrical equipment to the earth. Bonding refers to the connection of electrical equipment to each other. The purpose of bonding is to create a low impedance path for fault current to flow back to the source. This helps to trip over current protection devices faster and reduces the risk of electrical shock. The NEC requires that all metal parts of electrical equipment be bonded together. This includes metal enclosures, metal raceways, and metal piping. The bonding conductors must be sized according to the requirements of the NEC. Surge protection is another important aspect of electrical safety. Surge protection devices, or SPDs, are designed to protect electrical equipment from voltage surges. Voltage surges can be caused by lightning strikes, power grid switching, and other events. SPD work by diverting the surge current to ground, protecting the electrical equipment from damage. The NEC requires that SPD be installed in certain locations, such as at the service entrance and at sensitive electronic equipment. Regular inspection and testing of electrical systems are essential to ensure their safety and reliability. Inspections should be performed by qualified electricians who are familiar with the requirements of the NEC. Testing should be performed using appropriate test equipment, such as ground rod testers, insulation resistance testers, and circuit testers. By following the proper procedures and taking the necessary safety precautions, you can ensure that your electrical system is functioning correctly and providing a safe electrical environment. Remember to consult the latest edition of the NEC and local electrical codes for specific requirements and guidelines. Continuous learning and professional development are crucial for staying up to date with the latest advancements and best practices in the electrical industry. Consider attending training courses, seminars, and workshops to enhance your knowledge and skills. Staying informed about new technologies, regulations, and safety standards will enable you to provide the highest level of service and ensure the safety of yourself and others. Furthermore, consider obtaining certifications and licenses to demonstrate your competence and professionalism. Certifications such as those offered by the International Association of Electrical Inspectors, or IE, and other organizations can enhance your credibility and open up new opportunities. Building strong relationships with other professionals in the electrical industry can also be beneficial. Networking with colleagues, suppliers, and industry experts can provide valuable insights, support, and opportunities for collaboration. Consider joining professional organizations, attending industry events, and participating in online forums to connect with others in your field. In conclusion, testing driven ground rods at a service is a critical procedure for ensuring electrical safety. By following the step-by-step instructions, taking the necessary safety precautions, and interpreting the results correctly, you can verify that your grounding system is functioning effectively. Remember to consult the NEC and local electrical codes for specific requirements and guidelines, and stay up to date with the latest advancements and best practices in the electrical industry.